Greetings and welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of UC Weekly News. I'm your host, David Danto, and I'm being joined by Patrick Heyn. Patrick, it's Q-SYS, or is it QSC, or is it Q-SYS? I never remember what to call you guys. What's the right terminology?
We're going to be talking about Q-SYS today. Yeah.
Okay, so representing Q-SYS, and you just recently wrapped up about a week or so ago one of your big events, which you refer to as Activate all the time. This is one of the largest Activate events you ever did. Tell us a little bit about that. What was it like producing that and being involved in the production of something that large?
Yeah, we like to think of Activate as more of a product, more than just a product launch. It's a means of bringing people together and having them commune. We can talk about thought leadership. But it did so happen that this Activate in particular was, by every measure, our largest Activate in terms of what we were talking about, the amount of products we were announcing, and then subsequently, because we advertised it like that and because that was fact. It was our largest attendance by easily a factor of two. And I was actually overwhelmed by how many people showed up and the response that we got, which was just so overwhelmingly excited about the journey that Q-SYS is on.
So let me take a step back just for a second, because I'm assuming that people know things that they may not necessarily know. Obviously, we got a lot of AV people that watch the show, but we also have a lot of core UC people. So if you were to describe QSC and Q-SYS while standing on one foot, what's the quick explanation for what you do in the industry?
What Q-SYS is effectively integrated audio video control delivered in a full stack AV platform. And the goal is to deliver a grander total cost of ownership and total value of that ownership, and expand the life of the system beyond what it just does now by creating a foundation for new technology to arrive based on how the IT industry and other trends are emerging.
I mean, you'd have to be under a rock to not know what Q-SYS is, but I did want to get that out. And what is your role at the organization?
So I have had the pleasure of being the VP of marketing for about 3 years now, but I've been with the company for 15 or 16 years and started in training and really watched the platform blossom and took part in expressing to our customers and to the industry the real difference behind what a platform approach can bring to an AV solution.
Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, we can go back to the record-breaking Activate. And this was actually a live presentation, a live webcast. A lot of people watching, which included a roll-up of probably more announcements that you ever made at one time in the past. Can you give us just a high level of what some of those announcements were and why they were significant?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, aside from the messaging rollout, which we can get to in a second, David, which was our full explanation of what a full stack AV platform can bring to those that believe in it. But we basically, after describing the tenets of that full stack AV platform, we associated just a battery of product releases and announcements that basically allowed that message of full stack AV to come to fruition and show that we are actively working towards this technology ethos that we were professing. So we announced 3 new core processors, all of which are being driven by the same singular OS. We announced updates to our cloud platform in support of our belief of a future state of the cognitive cloud. We also bring to market this completely revised update to our what we call Q-SYS Vision Suite, which is a full motion automation solution that does presenter tracking and participant tracking. And we came to market with new hardware and new design tools that support that. Those were the major tenets of what we put out there.
So if I were to interpret some of this as a stupid person, which, in the context of this conversation between familiarity with what Q-SYS is and isn't, I'm the stupid person. But the idea is that instead of these piecemeal capabilities for building rooms and creating automation and going to the cloud and all these other things, you now have standard processors off the shelf in standardized hardware that all speak to each other across the board. so that some processing is taking place at the edge, some processing is taking place at the cloud. But regardless of where it's taking place, there's a logic to all of it where everything knows that everything else that's going on. So it's no longer just if then what statements that are in your programming. You can now say that, if it's a hot day outside and the rooms aren't cooled enough, and or if the candy bowl doesn't have enough candy for we can now create these large concepts of how we want these systems to work, and they'll all work together. Is that a
Yeah.
fair, stupid explanation of it?
No, you not stupid at all. You said it better than I said it. So you're hired. No, I think what we're trying to profess is there are what we profess to be high impact spaces where there is an elevated expectation of what those rooms should deliver. But I think what you're speaking of is the idea that these rooms are not discrete systems, that when you invoke a full platform solution, you can allow these rooms to take on grander intelligence and begin to pass data between those rooms so that you can not only deliver a great experience in a singular room, but you're able to influence the entire experience throughout that high performance workplace. So we don't ignore spaces like the hallways where BGM could actively be changed based on sentiment gathering that the system could be providing. You can use things like digital signage throughout, and all of these systems should not be apart from each other because they're all driving towards one solution. And so, why shouldn't a singular platform deliver that entire experience? And to your point, having a singular operating system and a singular platform delivering all of that and creating this very bi-directional conversation between all of these parts, like that's the Shangri-La of a full stack AV platform.
Yeah, I've been having this as a pet peeve since probably the late 1970s. Don't make fun of me. In that our industry, when we have either a designer or a consultant put together the design of a system, they have this thing, it still exists in our industry, called staging. And the whole point of staging is getting everything together in a room to first find out if it's actually going to work.
Yeah.
And I've never understood, as industries, we've always stood apart from that. We're really going to design these systems and then put them in the room and first figure out if the programming works. So this idea that there's this overall cohesive logic across a single stack now starts to not just make sense, but be possible.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I am not going to undermine the value that an integrator can bring to creating value across the system and making those systems work. All QSYS is trying to profess is there is a better path to that holistic approach if, for example, the audio processor was already designed to talk to the video processor. If they already did that, then that's one less thing that you need to integrate. That's removing points of failure because you're not having to connect those things manually. And it provides a better path for a holistic experience that is transparent to the person that is experiencing it. Like that's the other thing that I think QSYS stands to provide and stands to kind of teach the industry is that it shouldn't feel like the technology is working because the technology should be a completely transparent part of that experience. And if they're already designed to connect to each other, that communication becomes invisible to the person that's experiencing it.
Yeah. So take us down into the weeds just a little bit, not too
Yeah,
long, because I don't want to drive anybody crazy, but
for sure.
the model numbers, the names of some of the announcements, and also mention, I know you've simplified the licensing along the way, which, by the way, isn't a horrible thing to do.
Well, okay. So yeah, you're starting at the processors. So three processors announced. The biggest processor announcement is called the Core 24, which is effectively the successor to our biggest product of our history, which was the Core 110. Basically redefined the collaboration space and bringing like together in-room processing and in-room analog I/O and digital I/O. So this effectively is the successor to the Core 110. So we're talking about 24 onboard channels, 8 in, 8 out, 8 flex, and just a battery of network I/O at your disposal in addition to all of the ways in which you can integrate with the UC platform. So that's core 24. The other two cores basically fill out our processing portfolio in those medium to large spaces. And those are, like you said, those are based on industry standard protocols and industry standard hardware. So it's running our integrated OS. But we're taking full advantage of, for example, on our largest core, we make no allusion to the idea that we're not taking a Dell server. We are absolutely partnered with Dell. And as a result of that, we're using the processors that they've fully vetted, Intel processors. We're taking advantage of redundant power supplies that Dell's already in there. So these are processors that are intended to go in the rack and deliver large scale processing. So that's what we delivered at the processor level. The licensing that you mentioned, it was a great example of us taking stock of choices that we made early on in our platform, which were when Q-SYS began to become a player in the control area. Not everybody used Q-SYS as a control. It was new. There were other, incumbents in the space, and we wanted to acknowledge that, yeah, if you want to use Q-SYS, you can use our control engine, and you can do so via a license that you can purchase, but you don't have to. Well, our data eventually shown, so that was about 7 or 8 years ago. Our data has shown since then that 80% of the people that are buying core processors are invoking the control engine. And so why not include that in the cost of the core? And not only are you making the deployment simpler, but those that are using that control engine are actually doing so now at a lower cost. If you look at the cost of what the Core 110 was with the cost of that control license, we're actually providing a solution by including it in the cost of the core that is lower than the sum of those two parts. So easier to do, lower cost. And then I spoke about Reflect. Reflect is quickly becoming the epicenter of our platform, and acknowledging the power of what the cloud can provide in terms of processing power is immutable. Like if you are examining a platform, and again, like if you're not looking at Q-SYS, look at whatever platform you're looking at and its ability to deliver processing, advanced AI, cognitive learning, and machine learning. If it does not have the foundation to do that in the future, you should seriously be reconsidering what you're looking at. And so part of what we did with Reflect was we are re-architected that foundation, and we're beginning to deliver tools that are looking at trends at a macro level. So we introduced some tools that let you look at every meeting room in your enterprise, be that 10 or hundreds or thousands, and it can identify what are the most stable rooms so that you can make good choices on when you're scheduling your next big meeting. It probably makes sense to pick the most stable room. And transversely, if you are looking to upgrade rooms, let's look at the rooms that are identifying themselves as problematic or people avoid and try to decide why. So that's the cloud. And then the third biggest thing that we did, again, was with Vision Suite. So those that are not fully aware of what Vision Suite is or was, this is presenter tracking and audience participation, making sure that there's equity for that remote caller, making sure that everybody that's participating in a room, be that on stage or in the audience, that they're captured well. The big headline of what we put out at Activate was the idea that you no longer need to create presets in the room to try to anticipate where the audience is going to be sitting so that you can capture them. The alternative is, why don't you allow for chance and improvisation? And we do that by taking telemetry from the microphone and deducing where you are sitting in the audience and aiming the camera based on where you are and not where that preset happened to be. So it's going to allow for in the middle of the room or in the middle of the meeting for somebody to say, like the presenter to say, let's get into work groups. Let's move all the tables around. And the system will basically adjust for that adjustment based on where people are sitting.
Yeah, so without the rigidity, it's sort of a game changer, which ultimately was one of the things you called this meeting, right?
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, that's in a nutshell what we took. We spent an hour with 5,500 of our closest friends showing, and then folks kind of piled into breakout sessions and learned more. But the conversation was great, and we are so happy that people are recognizing that we're protecting them with the advancements that we're making in the platform, but we're also actively listening to the here and now and making sure that the system delivers results today and for the future.
So it's something that I don't want to miss when we're talking about this is while this is, your full stack vision, and that's really good, you came to the announcement with a lot of partners already certified to be on your platform and be part of what you do, right? I mean, it's a very extensive, I don't want you to go through the names now, but you have an extensive list of partners that you're working with in the AV industry that are already working within these parameters.
Yeah, I mean, part of that full stack AV description was a very intrinsic usage of our ecosystem, like an acknowledgement that Q-SYS does not build every device, but rather creates avenues for you to either design your own integration via an open API, but more importantly and more efficiently to take advantage of a partner ecosystem that are actively building these integrations into our solution. And you're right, like we shouldn't go through that list because it is over 100 deep integration partners that you can access via our plugin library and basically drag and drop those integrations as if they were native devices of our ecosystem.
Okay, so now we got to do a little bit of nuts and bolts and logistics here, just so that I understand this. So Activate was a live event, but it is available for people to watch if they missed it live, correct?
Yes. Yeah. And you know what? That's a point of pride too for Q-SYS is that we tried to honor those people that spend time with us live. But of course, we know people's lives are busy. You can go to qsys.com/activate to either watch the entire recording. We've also indexed every major announcement. So if you wanted to browse around, you can, I think we've got something like a dozen different videos that you can watch keynotes or product announcements. It's all there for you to see.
Okay, and then if somebody really wanted to see this in person or talk to you about it, isn't it really interesting that we're just a little bit away from the opportunity to do that in Orlando this year, correct?
Totally, totally. Yeah, and I don't want to forget qsys.com/activate to see those recordings. But if you want to come to InfoComm and see them live, you can find out more information about that at qsys.com/infocom.
Okay, I
And
will
there's
put both of those up on the screen so that people won't forget them. They won't be able to click on them, but at least they'll have them as a reference. And I assume Infocom is going to be another one of your wonderful romps through the Florida amusement parks that you've got set up on your stand, correct?
For sure. Yeah. If you like experiential storytelling, then you will love our booth. It is not kiosk driven. We take you through a full high performance workplace. And then when you're done, if you have time, you can go through an escape room, of course, completely driven by QSYS. And of course, there are a full battery of workshops that you can go to, different trainings that you can go to. Go to qsys.com/infocom to learn more about those.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to step back from the conversation just for a second and say something as an analyst that you can't say. One of the articles that I put out recently, and one of the things that I hold very dear, is when you're choosing a partner to be with, and there are terrific partners in this industry to be with, both, your organization, competing organizations, partner organizations. I'm not saying one better than another, but definitely as an end user, keep an eye on which ones are growing and keep an eye on which ones are shrinking. And you know what? Some of the most outstanding people that I know in this industry have suddenly started working with your team at USIS over the last year and a half. So that tells me that smart people are attracted to the story that you're doing. And that should definitely be something that people consider. And I'm not going to name names now to embarrass them, but a lot of really smart people up and down the line are starting to say, you know what? This full stack AV, this concept of everything working with everything else really means something, and we're going to be on board with it.
The QSYS has been around for 16 years, and it's taken a long time for us to break through with you. And I have a full appreciation that the platform had to get to the right spot for those people like yourself to take notice. And we're so happy that we're there. We're so happy that we're having these kinds of like elevated conversations. It's more than just us shouting into the dark. It's really folks like yourself and end users acknowledging the value that we're bringing. So thank you so much for the support. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
of course. And if you're watching the show and you're not familiar with Q-SYS, by all means, go to some of these links, learn about what this is, because it's certainly worthwhile to know whether you intend to use it or not. It's definitely something that's kind of changing the industry. And as we said, changing the game, or game changing, which was the subtitle of your event. Are there any other events that you're taking part in at InfoComm? Are there any panels or any other places where we can hear some of your people?
Yeah, actually, there's a whole list on that InfoComm website. There are workshops, there are panels that our executives are joining with other major UC partners and platforms. And so I would invite everybody to go to qsys.com/infocom to learn a little bit more about the panels, the workshops, all of the different presentations that are happening at the show.
Terrific. Patrick, thank you very much for spending the time talking to the people that watch the show. And thank you very much for joining us as you do every week. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.